This is the Rubin Report.
That's a good one.
You get it? You get it?
Oh, that's good. That's good.
All right, everybody. This is the Rubin Report. I am Dave Rubin, and you might notice we are not in studio today because we are at CPAC Hungary here in Budapest. And it's very exciting. The morning just kicked off. I'm actually in the future right now. I'm 6 hours in the future, but we are live at 11 a.m. Eastern, as always, for you guys. The Prime Minister of Hungary is right downstairs right now. He'll be on stage in a few minutes, probably while I'm doing this live stream right now. Tons of speakers all day. I'll be on the main stage in about 2 hours. Ben Shapiro is here. There are prime ministers here, presidents, people from all over Europe, all over America, literally all over the world. And the theme of the conference of CPAC is the age of patriots. There are people out there who believe in free speech, who believe in sovereign borders, who believe in, I don't know, individual rights, things of that nature, and that different countries are different for a reason, and that's okay. So we're going to be doing a normal show today, but I'll be doing interviews from CPAC throughout the day, throughout tomorrow. Our 2 events here in Budapest tonight and tomorrow are already sold out, so I'm not going to mention those. But I will be in Israel next week. We'll be in Tel Aviv on June 2nd, daverubin.com/events, and we'll be in Jerusalem on the 4th if you want tickets. Again, daverubin.com/events, and you'll probably be hearing some applause and music in the background, but bear with us as we do this. We've got a makeshift studio here. You might see my eyes darting around as I'm looking for video clips and things of that nature. And let's just dive into what's happening back on our side of the world, in the United States. Everything seems to be right now about the big, beautiful bill, which apparently might be a little too big for some people, including Elon Musk.
Disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on DOGE gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
All right, so that's the line that everyone seems to be hung up on right now. A bill can be big or beautiful, maybe not both. So there's a lot of concern right now, and I don't know that anyone has covered the DOGE cuts more extensively than we have, and it's very obvious to me that so many Americans are obviously behind what's happening with the DOGE cuts. But the question really is, are the cuts that Elon and the DOGE people put in, are they going to be erased by this big, beautiful bill? And that's worth discussing. So let me go to Grok and tell you a little bit about the bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act is a comprehensive legislative package championed by President Donald Trump as a cornerstone of his second-term economic and domestic policy agenda. It was narrowly passed by the Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives on May 22nd, 2025, and is currently under consideration in the Senate, where it faces potential revisions due to the slim Republican majority. The bill, exceeding 1,000 pages, combines tax cuts, spending cuts, increased funding for specific priorities, and other policy changes aiming to fulfill President Trump's vision of a new golden age. So yes, there are an awful lot of tax cuts. I am for tax cuts for absolutely everybody, not just for me, for you too. I don't care how much you make. They are cutting a lot of fraud. That's the cuts that pertain to Medicare and things. It's fraud. It's not cutting Medicare. But the key part of all of this is right now that obviously Elon thinks there's too much spending in it, and the bill still has to get to the Senate so it can and likely will change. This is a negotiation at the moment, and here's President Trump on that.
Big, beautiful bill, saying he was disappointed it didn't cut enough, essentially, that it undercut the DOGE efforts. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the reaction's a lot of things. Number one, we have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. We need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. The House was. We have no Democrats. If it's up to the Democrats, they'll take the 65% increase. If that doesn't get approved, this country is going to have a 65% increase in taxes and lots of other problems, big problems, almost bigger than that. But we'll have a 65% increase as opposed to the largest tax cut in the history of our country. we will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing. We're going to make people really be able to. We'll have the lowest tax rate we've ever had in the history of our country.
All right. So again, I'm with Trump when it comes to that. Lowering taxes on everybody, cutting fraud, which is what the DOGE component of this is. And then you might be watching this or reading about this going, well, where's all the spending? How is this adding to the deficit if we're actually going to, get these DOGE cuts through? It seems like we'd be saving money. Well, we are spending an awful lot of money on building the wall and some other things. But here's Stephen Miller. Let me read this tweet by Stephen Miller on a bit of the specifics around the cuts and the spending. DOGE cuts are to discretionary spending. For example, the federal bureaucracy. Under Senate budget rules, you cannot cut discretionary spending, only mandatory in a reconciliation bill. So DOGE cuts would have to be done through what is known as a recessions package or an appropriations bill. The big, beautiful bill is not an annual budget bill and does not fund the departments of government. It does not finance our agencies or federal programs. Instead, it includes the single largest welfare reform in American history, along with the largest tax cut and reform in American history, the most aggressive energy exploration in American history, and the strongest border bill in American history, all while reducing the deficit. Okay, so the last line now is the key part, because what Elon is now saying is this is going to increase the deficit, and you have Stephen Miller saying that this is going to actually decrease the deficit. So there is some stuff that's at loggerheads right now within the Republican Party, within MAGA. And you can even hear Trump admitting that now, okay, it passed the House narrowly, right, because it's only the Republicans doing it, but it still has to get through the Senate, and the bill still could change. So they're trying to cut taxes, right? On one hand, they're trying to cut fraud, and on the other hand, they're trying to protect the border. There's all sorts of infrastructure stuff in there. And we can all have our feelings on whether ultimately these things are good or not. Here's a bit more from Speaker Mike Johnson on some of the cuts that are being made.
We are not cutting Medicaid in this package. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this, Jake. The numbers of Americans who are affected are those that are entwined in our work to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. And what do I mean by that? You got more than 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Medicaid is not intended for non-U.S. citizens. It's intended for the most vulnerable populations of Americans, which is pregnant women and young single mothers, the disabled, the elderly. They are protected in what we're doing because we're preserving the resources for those who need it most. You're talking about 4.8 million able-bodied workers, young men, for example, who are on Medicaid and not working. They are choosing not to work when they can. That is called fraud. They are cheating the system. When you root out those kinds of abuses, you save the resources that are so desperately needed by the people who deserve it and need it most. That's what we're doing, and that's why this is the morality of what we're doing here is precisely right, and it comports with all the public opinion polls. When people ask whether young men, for example, who are able-bodied and have no dependents should be working, everybody says yes, and that's what our package does.
All right. So ironically, what you have there is Mike Johnson agreeing with the Elon portion of this, right? This is agreeing with the DOGE portion of let's cut the fraud, and people who should be working that aren't working, that are getting Medicare, or people who are illegal here that are getting payments and all these things, that stuff should be cut. Obviously, I agree with that. Obviously, you agree with that. Obviously, most Americans agree with that. So what we're really hung up on, as I see it right now, is the amount of spending as it relates to border and infrastructure. Now, on the border stuff, I'm for that. If it's about $50 billion to build the border wall, I'm okay with that. Hope maybe they could do it a little bit cheaper, but I think most people want a secure border at this point. Then there's the infrastructure stuff and some other stuff, but there are going to be some cuts, but it's not kicking grandma off Medicare or Medicaid. It's kicking people who shouldn't be on there in the first place and making sure the waste isn't there. All right, I think you got that. Let's talk about Prolong for a moment, and we'll be back on the other side. Busy weeks can leave you feeling drained. That's why I turned to Prolon's 5-day fasting diet, which is a doctor-developed program that resets your body at the cellular level for real lasting results. Now, with the new next-gen 5-day program, Prolon is even better, with 100% organic soups and teas, richer flavors, and ready-to-eat meals. Prolon helps you stay on track with your health goals by nourishing your body while keeping it in a fasting state, supporting fat loss, energy, skin health, and even biological age reduction. For a limited time, the Rubin Report listeners get 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Visit prolonlife.com/Dave. That's PROLONLIFE.com/Dave to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. Okay, so the other big story that's happening at the same time is as we are having, I would say, a healthy, robust debate about what the role of government should be, what the levels of spending should be, you know, the ability to have more of your money and all of those things. We're getting out of 4 years of being in a giant shadow where we did not know who the president was. And more information is popping up about that every single day. David Sachs, who, as you know, is he is the czar of AI and crypto. He went on Fox on Jesse Waters and talked about how Elizabeth Warren, Massachusetts Senator, pretend Indian, Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, was actually at least one of the people partly in control of Joe Biden's autopen.
This is the financial system of the future, Jesse, and we have to encourage it. What the Biden administration was doing, and let's face it, it wasn't Biden. Elizabeth Warren controlled the autopen during that administration. She, for some reason, has this pathological hatred of the crypto community. She wants to drive this community offshore. She doesn't want it happening in the United States. That's the wrong policy for the United States. We want all the innovation happening here. This is a financial system of the future. It's cheaper. It's more efficient. We want it happening here, Jesse, and I think people are thrilled that President Trump is making that possible.
All right, so we'll have a bit more on Bitcoin in just a second, but this issue around the autopen truly, in some sense, I think could be the biggest scandal in American history. We didn't know who the president was, and whether Sachs is right that it was Elizabeth Warren in charge, or whether it was Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer, or whether it was Jill Biden or somebody, there is simply no reason to think that Joe Biden had any idea not only what the bills were about, but that they were even having him sign it. Do you think they even told him when they signed bills? Oh, Mr. President, we just had an automatic pen sign some bills in your name. Probably not. And Donald Trump is hitting this issue over and over again because whether you like him or not, Donald Trump actually is the president and clearly knows what he's signing. Here's Donald Trump on the autopen. Other than the rigged presidential election of 2020, the biggest scandal in American history is the autopen. Whoever used it was usurping the power of the presidency, and it should be very easy to find out who that person or persons is. They did things that a Joe Biden of sound mind would have never done, like open borders, transgender for everyone, men and women's sports, and far more. Fear not, however, we will bring America back bigger, better, and stronger than ever. So yes, they are not letting go of this issue. And I think this is sort of like the COVID stuff where you can't fully let go of it without figuring out how did this happen? How did it happen that we ended up being, a certain set of people in America, being forced to take shots by the government, otherwise they were going to lose their jobs or couldn't go to school? It's the same thing with Biden. How did this happen? Because if we don't figure it out, if we don't lay the blame on the feet of somebody that was doing this, and people really do have to pay. You know me, I don't like lists. I don't like jailing people. I don't like looking at previous administrations and start pulling out all these people. But if we don't get some mea culpa around some of this stuff, it obviously will happen again. Do you want to be governed by the people who you elect, who you actually vote for, or do you want to be governed by an amorphous blob of people who are around them and can occasionally just say, hey, Joe, look over there while we sign the thing over here. Let's connect this actually to Bitcoin because as Sachs was talking about, Elizabeth Warren, who at least partly was in control of the autopen, does not like Bitcoin very much. And of course, Bitcoin is peer-to-peer decentralized payments. You and I could exchange money and the government would have nothing to do with it, as opposed to a government that could control all of our dollars and do things like the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually increases inflation. So let me read this from the Bitcoin archive. This is in March of 2024. President Biden vetoes bill that would allow banks to custody Bitcoin for their customers. Now, the reason I'm showing you that right there is because Elizabeth Warren, who clearly is in bed with the big banks, clearly wants to control your money. She always wants to raise taxes on everybody. She wants high regulation. She wants government to basically tell you how to do commerce, how to do business, et cetera, et cetera. If she was using the autopen as it related to any of the Bitcoin things or any of the crypto things in the Biden administration, then we do have a bit of a scandal here. I would say as it pertains to the banks specifically in the tweet that I read right there, if you have Bitcoin, which I have some Bitcoin, I don't know why you would want big banks to be in charge of your Bitcoin. You should just have it on a separate ledger or your own wallet, et cetera, but that's a separate issue altogether. But check this out. This is March of 2025. This is President Trump saying that the Biden administration sold billions of dollars of Bitcoin. Probably not the best idea.
Fortunately, in recent years, the U.S. government has foolishly sold tens of thousands of additional Bitcoin that were worth billions and billions of dollars had they not sold them, but they did sell them, mostly during the Biden administration. Not a good thing to have done. From this day on, America will follow the rule that every Bitcoin knows very well: never sell your Bitcoin. That's a little phrase that they have. I don't know if that's right or not. Who the hell knows, right?
All right. So this is super interesting because you basically have one political party, now the Republicans, who are leaning into crypto. They want things to be more decentralized. They want the government to have less control over how you do business. That, I would say, is largely pretty good. At the same time, they're trying to cut your taxes, big, beautiful bill. And then you have another party, the Democrats, who for the last 4 years, and we didn't know who was in charge, but were trying to not only regulate Bitcoin, but they were also selling Bitcoin, and they don't want you to be able to do business with people privately outside of government purview. And that is a huge, huge discrepancy that we're seeing between the parties right now. J.D. Vance spoke at the Bitcoin conference a couple of days ago, and yeah, this administration is leaning in.
The consistent fear that I hear is that there's still this perception that digital assets are not welcome in the mainstream economy. And let me promise you that our effort to change the policy is purely about changing that. We want our fellow Americans to know that crypto and digital assets, and particularly Bitcoin, are part of the mainstream economy and are here to stay. We know that the PRC doesn't like Bitcoin. The People's Republic of China doesn't like Bitcoin. Well, we should be asking ourselves, why is that? Why is our biggest adversary such an opponent of Bitcoin? And if the Communist Republic of China is leaning away from Bitcoin, then maybe the United States ought to be leaning into Bitcoin. And that's one of the things that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, that really shows you the divide right there. Why is it that the Chinese Communist Party, which wants control, which wants social credit scores, which wants people in these 15-minute cities, which wants, depending on your behavior and who you associate with and what you say online, to decide whether you can purchase things or not? I mean, this is literally happening in China right now. Hyper control versus Bitcoin, which is decentralized, right? If you were a big fan of the Rubin Report and you wanted to send some Bitcoin my way and you didn't want the government to do anything with it, I'm not even taking Bitcoin right now, but if that was what you wanted to do, that would just be fine, right? Or if I wanted to tip Connor over here, he's doing a fine job with a makeshift studio sitting here. Connor, wave for a second. Look, he's right there. He's normally a little bit further that way. If I wanted to tip him a little bit, what does that have to do with the government? So that really does set up, I would say, actually, it's connected to the backdrop of what we're talking about here in CPAC, or at least what seems to be a major theme, which is that you can either have a top-down way of looking at the world, that there's this set of people, and they're usually communists and Marxists and globalists, that can have an awful lot of control, and you can get some crumbs going down this way, or you can have an individual first, bottom up, I mean, you guys know this way of looking at the world, and you will be able to do business and have relationships as you see fit. And clearly America is on that side of it right now. Hungary is on that side of it right now. There are several other countries but we're in a big fight, largely with China over this. We're almost halfway through the show and we have not talked about genitals yet. So let's just segue right into that. How is that for a segue? segue. That was pretty good. You know what? Let's talk about upside, and then we'll get to it on the other side. In a year like 2025, you've got to be smart with your money. That's why the most valuable app on my phone is the free Upside app. I use it every time I get gas, grab groceries, or eat out. I earn real cash back on all of it. No points, no gimmicks, just money straight to my bank account. The average Upside earner earns up to $280 a year on purchases they're already making. It's that easy. Open the app, claim an offer, pay as usual, and get paid. They work with over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants, so cash back is always nearby. And right now, when you download Upside and you use my code Rubin, you'll get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. Just hit the link in the description or scan the QR code to get started. All right, can't do a show without talking about genitals. Let's dive right back into genitals as they're applauding. See, everybody wants genitals. I don't know if you can hear that. Donald Trump on Truth Social. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women's sports. This week, a transition male athlete at a major event won everything and is now qualified to compete in the state finals next weekend. As a male, he was less than average competitor. As a female, this transitioned person is practically unbeatable. This is not fair and totally demeaning to women and girls. Please be hereby advised that large-scale federal funding will be held back, maybe permanently, if the executive order on this subject matter is not adhered to. The governor himself said that it was unfair. I will speak to him today to find out which way he wants to go. In the meantime, I am ordering local authorities, if necessary, to not allow the transition person to compete in the state finals. This is a totally ridiculous situation. And yes, everyone knows this is ridiculous. This is a place where I am absolutely for the federal government doing the right thing and stopping this. Why would you be for a 15-year-old boy crushing a girl in pole vaulting or in racing or in wrestling or in basketball or in swimming or whatever it might be? This is an 80-20 issue for Trump. This is where he's an absolute all-star. And look at this. This is coming out of California just in the last couple of days. Here's a pole vaulting event. And yes, this is a boy, as always, beating the girls, and you can hear what it sounds like a father in the background, and he ain't having it.
All right, here we go. That's a boy! That's a boy! That's a man!
All right, to be clear, that was high jump, obviously, not pole jump. They're actually playing a video of Donald Trump right now. And if you heard the applause, he was talking about Viktor Orban here and the connection that Hungary and America now have, because, you know, I would say the sort of genesis, the beginning of the freedom movement is in America right now. And then the beginning of it from a European perspective is right here in Hungary. That's why I'm so happy to be here at the moment. But we'll continue because watch this video. If you want to just see how confused people are, there are still, I would say, self-hostages, people holding themselves hostage. Here's a female athlete talking about how boys actually should be in girls' sports. And then we'll have a female athlete basically explaining why that's complete nonsense.
Going to win the women's division or take prize money? I don't think so. So I don't understand what you're upset about. Like, are you mad because instead of 900th, you're going to take 900th and first because a trans woman maybe beats you?
I'll allow you to respond to that, Natalie.
Yeah, I mean, I find it very demeaning. Amateur women are very strong. We come into these races dealing with, tons and tons of difficulties, of challenges. We all have full-time jobs. We all have families. We have difficult work schedules. We have parents that we're caring for. We're not professional athletes, but that doesn't mean that our value and our work that we put into what we do is any less worthy of integrity in our race results.
All right, so I'm going to speak a little softer for the remainder of the show. I've been trying to keep the volume down a little bit because the live speeches are going out and there's audience members literally 3 or 4 feet on the other side of the camera right now. But Prime Minister Viktor Orban just took the stage, so everyone's really paying attention right now. So from Trump sort of going after and all the ridiculousness around the trans stuff, and again, it's this 80-20 issue, we all know it. Well, where is the epicenter, the ground zero of all of the woke nonsense? Well, of course, it is Harvard, and Trump is in a major fight with Harvard right now. And Harvard, I would say at this point, is no longer a place of higher education. It's basically a giant hedge fund with a $54 billion endowment, and they could be in a bit of trouble. Well, we have this first from Harvard itself. Without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard, and that's because Secretary of State Marco Rubio has now said that Harvard will not be allowed to have international students because so many of them obviously were taking part in these crazy protests and taking over campus and all these anti-American activities and stopping students from being able to go to class and all of these other issues that we all know. And we also know, and I was on BBC last night, and this British reporter was really going after me about free speech in America. And it's like, you know this. And I said this to the BBC reporter. We all know if a bunch of American exchange students were in literally any other country on earth and they were instigating protests at schools and stopping native students from getting to campus, we know they'd be kicked out. So sometimes things go both ways. Sorry, you don't have all of the rights of an American if you are not an American. But let's throw to Harvard alumni and major tech investor and everything else. And I would say recently red-pilled Bill Ackman on a bit about what's going on at Harvard.
But the university has continued to mismanage every element of their business. They mismanaged the endowment. They've let their administrative expense get completely out of control, and now they're mismanaging their relationship with the university. The wrong thing to do with President Trump is to escalate. Look at what happened with China, where tariffs are. We're now in we're in DEFCON, 3, with respect to Harvard. So what did Harvard do? They just they didn't acknowledge anything that was correct in the letter from the administration, and then they turned around and they said definitively no, and then they sued the administration. My view is, and I think this is the view of most Americans, is that the federal government giving taxpayer money to a university is a privilege and not a right.
Yeah, it is a privilege, not a right. And Harvard, I think you picked the wrong battle here because you're about to lose that right. Why should $1 of my money go to Harvard, which again has a $54 billion endowment and in essence operates as a private hedge fund? Why are we doing that? But to Bill's broader point, they picked the wrong fight here. All Harvard had to do in the last year was get control of its campus, was look at its admission practices, was remove some of the wokeness, was defend its students who just were paying an awful lot of money actually to go there and hopefully learn something, which obviously wasn't the case. All they had to do was just when they saw the culture shifting, was play ball a little bit with Trump, but they've doubled down every time. They're trying to figure out other ways to rename DEI to still be discriminatory as it comes to admissions and not actually, what do I always say, not take that mirror look in it and be like, boy, maybe we are the bad guys and Harvard is going to pay the price. I will make a bold prediction on this show. What do I always say? It's like the woke virus, it basically is the alien from the Alien movies, and it gets inside you and it destroys the host. It's not going to happen tomorrow with Harvard, but it is going to happen over the next decade or so. We are going to see that place go down, and rightfully so. Let's talk about gravity to fire for a minute, and then we'll get back. You guys know I'm all about logic and reason, and here's some simple logic. If your feet are killing you at the end of the day, you need new shoes. That's why I love G-Defy shoes by Gravity Defier. Their patented Verso Shock technology absorbs harmful shock, returns energy, and is designed to make walking, running, and standing feel effortless. Whether you're out and about or just on your feet all day, G-Defy makes every step better. Right now, my listeners get 30% off orders over 120. Just text Rubin30 to 91888 or visit gdefy.com and use code Rubin30 at checkout. Use logic, choose comfort, G-Defy. Okay, so the other part of this, so now we've done genitals, we've done some woke stuff as it pertains to universities. The other part, of course, and one of the big spending pieces of the big, beautiful bill is about $50 billion on building the wall. We know that the deportations are up now. Trump is now saying they want 3,000 people out a day. That's what he's tasked Kirsty Noem with doing. And there is good reason for it. The good reason for it, of course, is the amount of drugs that are coming across, the crime and everything else. And I want to show you this this story because you're barely going to see this in mainstream media. But an 18-year-old girl was just killed. This was in Texas by two illegals. And this stuff is still going on. And you might want to wonder why you're not going to know her name if you only pay attention to mainstream media. But you know Abrego Garcia. You know the names of the illegals who we boot out, but you don't know the names of the women who were raped or murdered, or in this case, killed while they are doing water sports.
The 18-year-old Ava Moore was kayaking at Lake Grapevine when police say that she was struck and killed by a jet ski with two women on it. Authorities were looking for the driver of that jet ski, who they say fled the scene by jumping into a vehicle with a man at the park. As mentioned, we do know that police have Daikerlin Alejandra Gonzalez in custody, the suspect that they believe is tied to the death of Moore. Earlier today, I spoke to Ava's basketball coach at the Air Force Prep Academy and also one of her teammates. They say that she had just finished at the academy and was headed to basic training in a few weeks. They're obviously heartbroken by her death.
Well, there's a lot of sadness, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. Obviously, none of us saw it coming, but and then it goes to anger that they left, anger that they didn't even see if she was okay.
So she just cared about not only her teammates but her whole country, and I think that's like the hardest part, is that she really was going to be a difference maker in protecting us and serving us, and it's just hard knowing that she's out.
All right, so there is an 18-year-old girl, and I'm going to know her name, and I hope you will know her name, and maybe that will trickle up to MSNBC or CNN or the New York Times or elsewhere. This should be a front page story on the New York Times or at Washington Post. Her name is Ava Moore, and an 18-year-old girl, an American, is now dead. Period. That's it. She's not coming back. And it gets worse. Here's video footage of the illegal alien who hit her being helped by Venezuelan, we think potentially illegals, get into a van to flee.
En el carro que se la monta y le toma foto a las placas, porfa. El carro de ella, amor. Date para el carro. ¡Se fue! Abrí la cajuela, Luis.
Nadie va a venir encima tuyo.
Y Alejandra, mamá.
Se fue mal. Nada, no sé.
Vámonos.
Amor, las placas del carro de este enfrente.
Well, there you have it. That girl will probably become the next hero of the Democrats. And although I'm being slightly sarcastic, I'm actually not, because they are still at it. They are still at it over on the televised mental institution known as MSNBC 13. Listen to this. I mean, this is Michael Steele. And this guy, Michael Steele, was once the chairman of the Republican National Committee. He was a sane Republican. I've interviewed him. I've had dinner with him. He was a good man. I do not know what has happened to him, but this is this is truly, we play disgusting clips all the time. This might take the cake for MSNBC conflating illegals with Americans who are somewhere under Gaza.
Brought to you by MSNBC 13. If there's an illegal alien criminal out there, we have their back.
Could you explain or maybe express how is this different? Because I've been thinking about this case in particular, but some of the others that are very similarly situated. How is this different from when Putin grabs a journalist or some rogue group in the Middle East grabs an American, and we're sitting here fighting to try to get them back? Our own government did this. Mm-hmm. Our own government snatched him up and put him in harm's way, and now refuses to do what it must do and should do to get him back home. Is there any difference in your view as a member of Congress when, you're sitting here and you're getting intel and information on individuals around the globe who've been taken by, taken hostage by groups and organizations, and all this energy to try to get them back? I find we're doing the exact same thing here in the U.S. now.
Yeah, we
with our own government. We're petitioning our government to stop seizing people and grabbing them off the streets and putting them in foreign prisons.
Yeah.
This is the part that's killing me.
And don't forget the Venezuelans.
Michael Steele, I enjoyed interviewing you when we did that. It was actually at a political event. It was a live event in front of a couple hundred people back in L.A., I don't know, a good 8-9 years ago. And you were a Republican, and you were at that time explaining to me what the Trump MAGA movement was all about. And I don't know what they do to you people at MSNBC NBC 13. I don't know how they break your brains. I don't know if it's in the coffee or in the water, but what you are comparing is an illegal immigrant, a man who was not a U.S. citizen, being taken back to his home country, El Salvador, a man who beat his wife with a boot, according to her own words, multiple times, a man who was a human trafficker caught on video doing that. And you are comparing that to American citizens. So there were several American citizens killed in Israel, but to our desire to want to get our American citizens back. You're comparing Hamas taking American citizens, hiding them underneath Gaza somewhere. That is comparable to an illegal who is kicked out of our country. They have broken your brain, you leftist buffoon. And I'd love to have you on the show where I can speak slowly and stare right in your eyes and tell you exactly that. But the Democrats, he's a perfect example of what the Democrats are, because I don't know if he still pretends to be a Republican, but he obviously isn't. If anything, he's one of these guys, they give him a cookie, they pat him on the head, they say, thank you, useful idiot, and they move on. But the Democrats don't know what to do, right? They all the same people are out, the radicals are running the party, and they're really trying to rebrand right now. So what have I said to you a couple times over the last few weeks? They've been putting these placeholders in, like George Clooney, and they put them out there so that it's like, while they're trying to figure it out, people will be like, oh, I remember Ocean's 11. George Clooney's not so bad. But now they are in the full rebranding mode, and they're trying to figure out who's going to lead. Check out this headline from Yahoo News. Could Blue MAGA revitalize the Democratic Party? Right, because there's something about making America great again that has anything to do with the Democrat Party. I have no idea what that is. When Red MAGA came out, it was racist, but now they're going to try to make Blue MAGA cool, and here they are trying. So they're trying desperately. Who can it be? They have to go through the clown car of people to figure out who can be the leader. Well, here they are with now bearded Pete Buttigieg.
Of course, we should be talking about how, if Speaker Johnson got his way, it wouldn't be possible, not just for gay people to get married, but for straight people to get divorced, let alone like birth control, or how he would want to regulate porn or whatever most people would have a problem with.
All right. So good luck, Pete. The beard kind of works, but you're not faking it well enough. First of all, Mike Johnson is not a dictator, and I don't know exactly what Mike Johnson's personal thoughts are. I think I can say that he actually, in his personal religious beliefs, does believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, but it is the law of the land now. There is no one really in MAGA that's trying to do anything about that, but you're trying to use fear. So if you want to convince people that if Mike Johnson takes over, that gay people won't be allowed to be married, they're going to reverse the Supreme Court decision on that, and straight people won't be able to get divorced. Yeah, good luck with that. And that they're going to ban porn and all of these things. And that's a great idea to be running on porn. It's like, you guys just don't get it. So they've got Pete, and then what else do they have? They have this incessant need to make everything about race. Listen to a judge talk about proper judging when it comes to race.
Thought that it was important that, especially in criminal cases, where when you have people that on one side of the bench, they can look at the judge and say, wow, she looks like me, then maybe I have a better shot.
So that is a Cleveland judge. And do you realize how absolutely absurd that is? The fact that she doesn't know that outside of every courtroom in the United States is Lady Justice. And Lady Justice wears a blindfold. You know why? Because she's blind, because your skin color doesn't matter according to the laws of the United States. But you want people people so want everything to be about race that you want people to go into a courtroom and be like, oh, the judge is black, they'll be a little more friendly to me, or the judge is white, that means they're going to come get me. And that will be the thing that will hack away at every norm that we have in this country. And it's not good, and we will fight it. That's why I'm here at this conference right now, because all over the world, different countries are fighting their own version of this woke mind virus. And we refuse to just give up, right? We refuse to allow you people to take over. And thankfully, from an American perspective, at least, people are picking up on this. Listen to this from Rasmussen. Trump's approval rating hits new high as 50% of voters say America is on the right. track. So wherever you fall as it pertains to the big, beautiful bill or the tax cuts or some of the spending, which again, still will be hashed out, most of the stuff that is happening right now, getting Russia, Ukraine to talk, hopefully working on what's going on in the Middle East, getting us involved in decentralized monetary system like Bitcoin, all of the things that are fixing the border, et cetera, all of these things are things that Trump is winning on, and they're going to keep going with race, and they're going to keep going with fear. But I think there's a better way. And to end today's show, we thought we would take a great American and talk about that better way. Listen to this quote from Teddy Roosevelt. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, he errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." And that's Teddy Roosevelt, Citizenship in a Republic from 1910. And that's right. That's right. How do I end virtually every show? At the end of the day, it's you. Get involved, whether you like what's going on or you don't like what's going on. Get a little dust in your face. Get in the fight. That's what the fight's about right now. The guy that's speaking right behind me right now, Viktor Orban, he's fighting desperately for his country. And the media says that he's racist and mean and all of those things. And I can tell you that this is my second time in Hungary. And what I've seen here is a country that's proud of its history, proud of its culture, proud of its borders, and doesn't want to be governed by bureaucrats in Brussels. So unless you want to, or unless you want the Chinese government to decide when you can spend your money and get us all on a social credit system, get in the game and fight. All right, there's no post-game show because we've got a long day. I'm sitting down with former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott. In a few minutes, we'll have Ben Shapiro on and a whole bunch of other people throughout the day. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.